Welcome back to Analogue, a hate story. I had to take a little break between episodes there because, the last one fucked me up a little bit. It was pretty dark. Also I got tired of looking at the detective outfit, so yeah, I changed her outfit. So that's the way things are, I suppose. You're disappointed in me. Is that it now? Now that you know I'm a real girl, you expect me to dress like one? Where did you find this? I didn't make this design. Guess it was in the computer already because it's what I wore when I died. When I was still alive. I never liked it. I always wanted to wear fun things, but instead I had to wear this all the time. I still don't like it. I suppose something formal would be more appropriate because of all the seriousness and stuff. Let's get back to work. It's cute though. Okay, we found something new. Dear diary, I guess it's been forever since I cared enough to write anything down. I just haven't seen much point. Since my last entry, I got married, moved to the palace, and lost my virginity. Apparently, for a girl my age, none of these things are really all that weird. The queen finally insisted on talking to me the night after I first slept with dearest husband. I'd been expecting it. My sister warned me that she would probably be jealous, and I just have to endure it. She outranks me, and I would simply have to kowtow to her if needed. I haven't had to yet, though. We had tea together, and she, at least, has started acting friendly. I'm sure sister was right. I'll get the brunt of her anger soon enough, but today she was friendly. How are you holding up? She asked me after we finished with tea. I shrugged. Do you trust me? I know how hard it can be for a newlywed. I've been through it myself, but I was at least older. You probably miss your family, do you not? That's what would be expected from any good girl, so I nodded. It gets easier with time. I had no response. I'm sorry, am I bothering you? You can leave if you wish. I simply thought you might like some company. I wasn't sure how to respond to that either. I just clasped my hands and shook my head. I just wanted to be sure, she said. There was a long pause that followed. Finally, she asked, how was last night? It surprised me that she was willing to bring up the subject, figuring that it was a segue to her being vindictive towards me for sleeping with her husband. I shrugged as she continued. I just know he can be rough. Nobody ever talked about those duties with me. Then she smiled, and I felt almost like I could drop my guard. I had no idea what to expect my first time. Do believe me, I'm not jealous. That is nothing to be jealous of. But do tell me how it was. It made me think back on last night. Honestly, it was the best night I've ever had since waking up in the future. Everyone, my mother, my sister, and now my queen, warned me that it would be bad. It would be a duty and nothing more. But honestly, I did love it. I would have let him keep me up all night if he'd had the energy for it. I guess while I was still thinking about all that, I let a slight smile. I caught myself, but not before she noticed. Oh, did you enjoy it then? She asked, touching my arm. I jumped. Please, please be at ease. That's perfectly all right too, so long as you know it's just for him, and there's absolutely no shame in that. There is none. I expected her to jump into something passive-aggressive from that, but she didn't. All she did was change the subject, and she said she was really worried about me. Maybe she isn't so bad. So you can see she was kind, she was good to me, she really was. I take it you want to know more about my marriage then. What are you interested in? Then you're in luck, she's in all the entries. Well, she was really the only thing in my life worth writing about for the most part. There's one in there that she wrote herself about her husband, and you can see for yourself. She's a lot stronger than I ever was. So you can see for yourself why I admired her. Attending to my husband has been easier than I was afraid it would be. Yes, there's days when it requires more strength than usual to keep going. I'm still getting increasingly more sick. Nothing will change that. But it's not so bad, really. All I have to do is dote on him and try to anticipate his desires, and he's happy with me. No abuse or anything. Sure, it's not as if I like him. He's an ugly 40-year-old man who cares only about politics and never tells me anything. Love, well, that's certainly no concern. I don't know where I ever got the impression that was something that could happen in a marriage. I thought it was something from the past, but, well, I was young before I got put in stasis. It must have been a mistake of childhood. But so long as I do as I'm told, and I'm not mistreated, like I was by my sister. And sleeping with him feels good. I really hope I don't get pregnant soon. I don't want that to stop. Doing that is really the only thing that makes me actually happy these days. Well, that and Jay-Hua's talks with me. She's nice. She keeps me company when I stay up to wait for his return. She fetches servants to take me to bed on those days I'm too feverish to sit for long. And she just talks to me as if I'm a friend. I don't really understand why, but I guess she doesn't really hate me after all. Do let me tell you, she said one evening while she brushed my hair. I always wanted a little sister growing up. That's how I think of you. Does that make sense? I shrugged. It was nice of her, and it felt so relaxing to let her touch my hair like that. She wasn't waiting for a response anyway. By now, she knows better. She just keeps talking kindly to me. The more she lives in my house, the more I am confused by the mystery that is the pale bride. No wonder why my husband has been favoring the Kim family lately. Their daughter seems to be the perfect woman. She's not simply a pale beauty. She's always too shy to speak at all, let alone argue. She seems to hang off his every word, and, it turns out, is actually so completely humble in her education that she cannot even read. Or rather, she cannot read normal characters. I have been observing her writing to herself in perhaps what may be a diary. When I asked what it was, she wouldn't say, but was quick to hide it. I could not recognize a single character on the screen, however. They seemed simplified compared to regular writing. Perhaps she has invented a writing system just for herself? It is very strange. Did you ever receive those letters I sent to your house before you arrived? I asked her, curious. Seemingly she had. Did you read them? Her response was worried, as if she was scared that I would be angry to find out she hadn't. I was not, of course. I'm sorry, I had assumed. Are you able to read? That was when I found out that she wasn't. I offered to read them to her, to which she seemed quite enthusiastic. I think I am likely to leave out some parts, however. I had enough difficulty bringing myself writing the more embarrassing parts of the family history. Bringing myself to talk about them, even if I know she would never say anything, is just far too much. Like all things with her, I cannot tell whether her enthusiasm is sincere or an effort to make me happy. This troubles me. Of course I wasn't illiterate. I could read just fine, just not their stupid Chinese-based characters. I mean, I can understand them now. Everything except for my diary entries is translated from them. It's such a dumb way of writing, though. It makes everything come out so stilted compared to proper Korean. Anyway, you're showing me that because you're interested in her admonitions, right? I'll just give you the letters she sent. They give all the details, even the one she was too embarrassed to tell me about at the time. You can probably guess what part she cut out. It's pretty obvious. It's the incest thing that she never told me about at the time. Having read about it now, I don't really blame her. And you can see what I mean for yourself. I've been thinking a lot about how close my death must be now. Lately I've been getting more prone to fainting spells. Probably goes right along with my diminishing appetite. If the doctor from the past was right, I've still got over a year left to live, maybe more. He said it wasn't very likely to get bad enough to kill me until I was at least 18. Although maybe all those years in stasis might have changed that. I don't know. But if he was right, and if I haven't lost track of time, I'm 16 and a half now, so there's still a while. I've been trying to hide the signs of sickness. Even if I could explain, I know full well that nobody would believe me. So far, hiding it has been mostly working, although I did have one of my fainting spells while my husband was on top of me. He wasn't angry at me, though. I don't think he cared. I know all I write about these days is sex with my husband and conversations with his wife. The Kim family would be proud, I guess, but those two things are really all that's worthwhile in my life. I have other responsibilities, of course, but they're not that interesting, and that's about it. Anyway, the Queen has continued to be nice to me. She finally figured it out. We were having tea together one afternoon. She was talking about nothing in particular, and she asked me a question that I just shrugged to. I hope you do not take this the wrong way, she said, but there is something I would like to ask you. I don't think I've ever heard your voice before. I nodded again. Why don't you ever speak to me? Are you saving that for the Emperor? I didn't know how to respond. She was so close to getting it, to bringing up the subject I wasn't able to, yet that wasn't the right question. So I shook my head and hoped that her next question would be. It was. Then, she said uncertainly, are you mute? I felt like screaming yes at the top of my lungs. I was so happy she'd finally figured it out. I smiled and was about to nod enthusiastically, but suddenly I stopped. What if she thought less of me if I said yes? If she knew the reason I was so quiet and demure wasn't because of any sort of discipline. Those were the things people liked about me. Would she stop liking me if she knew? What if she told my husband? I was so terrified I couldn't think of any correct answer. If I said no, I'm sure she would have asked to hear what my voice sounded like, and I'd be forced to disobey. And if I nodded, she'd know I wasn't really trying hard to be a good wife, and I'm sure she would talk to my husband about it, so he'd know too. But while I stared at her in terror, thinking of how to respond, she sighed and sipped her tea. Don't worry about it, she said. You do not have to answer. Please do forget that I even asked. Now, I'm a little confused because previously she had previously had letters where she had written down that she talked to people and yelled at, like, families, so I don't... Nobody ever noticed that until her. Nobody cared. Nobody ever thought of it or cared enough to find out. But she did. She actually paid attention. She was great. My concern over the pale bride's condition has grown. Lately, she has seemed to grow even quieter, if such a thing is possible for a mute girl. Well, perhaps saying she is mute is an assumption too far on my part. I tried asking her directly, but she seemed too scared to answer. That simply makes me more suspicious, and I should like to know why. I addressed my husband on the matter, telling him that I wished to speak to the woman of the Kim family house, to see if I could find out what is wrong. He shrugged me off, saying, don't, they're valuable subjects. The son is someone I have my eye on in particular. The politics of this situation are far too delicate for you to be meddling with. It cleared my throat. He might be both my husband and emperor, but I would not let that stop me from being bold. My dear husband, I don't care, I said flatly. I'm worried about the girl, and I believe that talking to her mother might shed some light on the matter. The son is of no concern to me. I don't see why it matters. She's the perfect woman. Why, are you jealous? He said, rolling his eyes at me, a gesture that he's only been able to use on me and his servants ever since becoming emperor. Nobody had the patience for it when he was a child, and I don't have it now either. Inho, dearest, do you believe that the well-being of your wife is a political matter, or even an external one? I asked. He didn't. So would you say it's a domestic matter? I asked. He reluctantly agreed. Then, as a domestic matter, it is the responsibility of the woman of the house, is it not? Please tell me. You are, obviously, more well-read in the classics than I said, both of us knowing he wasn't. Fine, he said, but just because it is your responsibility does not mean that I can't overrule you. He left silent the follow-up. I don't have to take this from you. You do know that my concerns are valid, though, I replied. If you value my opinion, you will let me speak to the Kim mother. There was a pause. Then he raised his hand in annoyance. Very well, do it. It's women's business. I don't want part in it regardless. Then he shook his head. Why must all our conversations be argument? I smiled to him and left. He already knows the answer. I never knew about that when we were alive. Like most things, I only found out after I took over the ship's computer. It just amazes me even more. Look at her. She's a woman who actually stood up to a man and won. She wasn't clumsy like I was. She knew how to work it from her position. Isn't that so amazing? You always forget how terrible it is to cry yourself to sleep until it happens. It's just the ultimate feeling of helplessness, but what's new there, right? I just miss her. Even if she scared me, I miss her so damn much. Xia Hui was I hope I'm saying that right, was the only one who was sympathetic to me. Why did she have to die? Is that my fate? Anything that makes whatever short life I have left bearable must go? Fate just hates me, I've decided. I don't know what killed her. I overheard one of the servants saying the doctor claimed it was too much worry, causing an excess of wood in the spleen, which he claimed to be common in oversensitive women. I was baffled by the absurdity at the time. I still am now. My only friend is dead, and her diagnosis is absolutely insane. What do you even say to something like that? Well, I guess it's not like I need to worry about knowing what to say. But in light of that, it doesn't surprise me that nobody ever believed I was sick. With medicine that stupid, why would they? All it does is reinforce how hopeless everything is. I just constantly wonder, why did my father, or my own doctor, think that people would be smarter in the future and that medicine would be better? My servant has been helping me get through all the funeral stuff. Well, I mean, she's been guiding me through the rites, practically doing them for me, really. I'm so weak and so stunned, I don't even know how I've been getting out of bed. I couldn't describe any of the ceremony, it's all a blur. There's been a lot of black dress. I suppose that's my only impression. And crying. Lots of crying from me. It's like... It kind of reminds me of the movie Idiocracy, because in the future everyone just got really stupid. I don't have anything to add to that. She didn't deserve to die. Excess of wood. What is that even supposed to mean? Okay. These are the letters from her to the Pale Bride. To the woman who will marry my husband, you are doubtlessly aware, as is tradition for a nobleman's mother to write poetic admonitions to be sent to the bride-to-be before she enters the family, explaining the circumstances and proffering her advice to her. Sadly, your mother-in-law is long since departed, leaving the responsibility in my hands. I never had any such letters sent to me, for reasons which I'll explain soon enough. And I have furthermore studied verse only enough to know that I am unable to write it well. I hope you do not think less of me, young Pale Bride. For addressing these letters in plain speech instead, rather pay attention to my words over my form, and please do not be hasty in erasing these letters after reading, for your own sake. I hope you find the advice and knowledge I will impart on you to be useful. As you are no doubt aware, the Ryu family has an extremely long and proud history. Every man to hold the title Captain and Emperor has always been of our house, and you are here to make sure that continues for another generation. The name goes all the way back to the ancient times. Mythologically speaks of a Captain Ryu who had control over even the ship's movement through the stars themselves. Such things remain far removed from everyday life, but it is important to understand the significance of the house, and the title that your first son will eventually come to inherit. Do you trust me? I'll try. Please understand my position at the time. My world was so small, and I just lost my only friend. And then, well, I'll give you my last 2 diary entries, so they have the whole story. Just don't judge me while you read them, please. We're going to finish reading these first. It is an obvious matter that I do have the same family name as my husband. The official story, if you have not already heard it, is that we are cousins, making our marriage improper and less than ideal, but somewhat acceptable given the circumstances. At the time, there were no noble daughters who had not already been promised or given away in marriage. And obviously, a girl of any lesser upbringing could not possibly be suitable as queen. Hence, cousins would simply have to do. Strictly speaking, this is all true. The part about there not being any noble daughters available is not a misrepresentation. And as far as any official genealogy is concerned, the Emperor is son of my father's brother. The part which you may not speak of openly is that he is the old Emperor's son only by adoption. And as far as blood goes, my husband is also my brother. As children, we never lived together, and it would, of course, have been strictly improper to have spent any time together at that age. I would never say anything such as that my husband actually arranged for there to be no noble daughters to marry, out of his desire to marry me. That, of course, would be a rather bold move to accuse an emperor of such. But you may wish to consider what the implications might be if such a thing truly did happen. I leave it to you to decide whether or not such a thing is plausible. All I will say is that despite our marriage being one of necessity, my husband has always been very fond of me. As for responsibilities, your burden will be quite light. You will, of course, be expected to be the model of feminine virtue, but truthfully, I do not expect you will have very much trouble with this. So long as you keep your head down, avoid scandal, and keep quiet, that will more than suffice. As far as the day-to-day is concerned, you will have nothing to concern yourself with, as this is the royal family you are marrying into. As queen, I run management of the house's affairs and will not require any assistance from you in that regard. As part of a royal concubine's demonstration of modesty, you will have to share my own personal servant and will not have one of your own. While you will not have to be responsible for all housework, be modest and do not remain idle at her expense. You are expected to be as unseen as the servants and to be voiceful only in the most moderation. Do not speak harshly to your servant, and be appreciative of what she does, and not incompassionate. Your one sole responsibility will be spending as much time with the Emperor as it takes to produce a son. After you give birth, you will not need to worry about raising him. I will be there to make sure that is arranged for. Simply make our husband happy, keep out of sight, and give him a son, and you will have no more to worry yourself with. The virtues which you are expected to demonstrate are simply those expected of any woman, and given your noble upbringing, I will not condescend to treat you as if you do not already know them quite well. You are expected to be quiet and obedient to me as well as obviously to our husband. Perchance you are scolded, trust my judgment as your elder. I will never act out of anger or spite. If scolded by our husband, always respond with a smile, for your relationship with him must always be warm, and he is a wise man. I do not, however, anticipate such things will be problems. He told me of the interview in which he spoke to you, and had nothing to report at all on your manner of speech. So I trust it was entirely proper and polite. In light of that, I will say nothing further of the matter. As far as ritual obligations go, you have none, save for following in my lead. Both your mother and father-in-law are long dead, so you have no further obligations to them. I had trouble adjusting at first, but I anticipate nothing you could be surprised by. So, if your husband yells at you here, you just have to take it and smile. Nah. My husband yells at me, I'm yelling right back. I will not tell you to avoid court politics entirely so long as you do not cause trouble, but I will suggest that you simply watch from a distance. The temptation may exist to meddle, especially if you ever talk to the artificial girl Mute, who lives inside of our computer. She is a gossip and a friend of the Smith noble family and is responsible for revealing much of what they try to keep hidden. She may seem fickle, but she does belong to the House of Ryu first and foremost, and is quite loyal. Nevertheless, meddling is not in your best interest. Do not play politics, not only for our sake, or for the sake of being a virtuous wife, but for the sake of your own family as well. They will receive favor, not through any scheming on your part, but through our husband's will. Entertain yourself with gossip if you wish, so long as you keep quiet about it. But stay out of politics. In the end, you will manage to go much farther if you rely only on rewards for being a good wife. I think this is one that we read already. Yes, it is. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. In the next video, what we're going to do is read through the rest of the diary that she just gave us, which, seeing as this last one says, I'll kill them all, I am interested to find out what that's going to be. So, see you in the next video!